Developing Your Personal Teaching Style and Educational Legacy. The room was quiet. Sarah looked around the classroom one last time as the final students finished their evaluations and slowly gathered their belongings. Nearly a year had passed since she had nervously taught her very first class. Since then, she had learned how adults learn, developed stronger lesson plans, improved her presentation skills, managed difficult classroom situations, embraced technology, and discovered how to make Arizona real estate law meaningful through stories instead of simply reading statutes. She smiled as she erased the whiteboard. David walked into the room carrying his coffee, just as he had so many times before. "So," he asked, "how does it feel?" Sarah laughed. "I remember thinking teaching was about knowing the material." "And now?" he asked. She looked around the empty classroom before answering. "Now I know teaching is about helping other people believe they can learn it." "Exactly." He pulled up a chair and sat down. "You've learned every technique we've talked about during this workshop. You understand adult learning theory. You know how to write measurable learning objectives. You've learned how to organize courses, manage classrooms, use technology effectively, tell memorable stories, simplify difficult legal concepts, and continually improve your teaching." He paused for a moment. "But none of those things will make you memorable." Sarah looked puzzled. "What will?" "You." That answer stayed with her. Every instructor eventually develops a personal teaching style. Some are energetic and humorous. Others are calm and conversational. Some rely heavily on stories, while others excel at demonstrations or classroom discussions. There isn't one perfect teaching style because there isn't one perfect instructor. The goal isn't to imitate another educator. The goal is to become the most authentic version of yourself while applying sound educational principles that help students learn. Throughout this course, we've repeatedly returned to one central idea. Students remember how instructors make them feel. They remember instructors who were approachable, prepared, respectful, enthusiastic, and genuinely invested in their success. Those qualities build trust, and trust creates an environment where learning flourishes. Sarah realized that authenticity also meant being comfortable adapting her teaching style to different audiences. A class of newly licensed salespeople required a different approach than a room full of experienced brokers. A pre-licensing course felt different from a continuing education class. Some groups preferred discussion, while others enjoyed case studies or hands-on activities. Great instructors remain flexible because they understand that the students, not the presentation, should always drive the learning experience. As Sarah continued teaching throughout Arizona, something unexpected happened. Former students began contacting her. One had become a designated broker. Another was now teaching contract classes at a local brokerage. Several shared stories about difficult transactions where they remembered a lesson from one of Sarah's classes. None of them mentioned a PowerPoint slide. None of them remembered a quiz question. Almost every one of them remembered a conversation, a story, or a piece of advice that helped them make a better professional decision. Sarah finally understood what David had been trying to teach her from the very beginning. Education doesn't end when class is over. Its influence continues every time a former student serves a client, mentors a new agent, resolves an ethical dilemma, or teaches someone else. That's an instructor's legacy. David often said that real estate instructors occupy one of the most important positions in the profession because they influence people they may never meet. Every student who leaves your classroom will eventually represent buyers, sellers, landlords, tenants, investors, and families throughout Arizona. The professionalism, ethics, and knowledge you help develop will continue spreading through thousands of future transactions. Few professions offer that kind of opportunity. With that opportunity comes responsibility. Never stop improving. Stay current with Arizona law. Continue refining your courses. Seek feedback. Attend educational conferences. Learn from other instructors. Be willing to change when better teaching methods emerge. Most importantly, remember that every class may include someone who will one day become an instructor themselves. Teach them not only what to know, teach them how to teach. As Sarah gathered her materials, she noticed the notebook she had carried throughout the year. The first page contained notes about being nervous before her first class. A last page contained something very different. It was a personal action plan. Continue learning. Keep updating every course. Listen to student feedback. Tell better stories. Never stop asking questions. Help every student believe they can succeed. She closed the notebook and placed it in her bag. David stood and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned and asked one final question. "Do you remember what I told you before your first class?" Sarah smiled immediately. "You said the class begins before the bell rings." He nodded. "And now I'm going to leave you with one more thought. The class never really ends. She looked at him. What do you mean? Every student who leaves your classroom carries a little bit of your teaching into their career. They'll use it when advising buyers, protecting sellers, resolving problems, mentoring other agents, and perhaps one day standing in front of their own classroom. He smiled. So teach every class as though your influence will continue long after the lesson is over. Sarah turned off the classroom lights, closed the door behind her, and walked toward the parking lot. She realized she wasn't leaving the classroom. She was becoming the instructor she had hoped to be. As you complete this instructor development workshop, remember that effective teaching is not measured by the number of slides you create, the stories you tell, or even the courses you teach. It is measured by the confidence you build, the professionalism you model, and the positive impact your students carry into their careers. Arizona needs knowledgeable instructors. It needs ethical instructors. It needs instructors who inspire curiosity, encourage professionalism, and prepare future licensees to protect the public with competence and integrity. Most importantly, it needs instructors who never stop learning. Congratulations on completing the Instructor Development Workshop. Your journey as an instructor is just beginning. The future of Arizona real estate education is now, in part, in your hands. Instructor tip. At the conclusion of every course, ask yourself one final question. If one of my students teaches this class someday, what do I hope they remember about the way I taught? The answer to that question will help shape the educational legacy you leave throughout your career. Online discussion question 1. How would you describe the teaching style you hope to develop throughout your career? Answer. Every instructor develops a unique teaching style based on personality, experience, and educational philosophy. The most effective styles combine authenticity with sound instructional practices that encourage participation, build trust, and help students confidently apply what they learn. Question 2. What kind of educational legacy do you hope to leave as an Arizona real estate instructor? Answer. An educational legacy is created through the lasting influence instructors have on their students. By modeling professionalism, ethical conduct, lifelong learning, and a commitment to student success, instructors help shape future real estate professionals who will continue serving the public with integrity. Question 3. What specific steps will you include in your personal action plan for continued instructional excellence? Answer. A strong action plan may include regularly updating course materials, attending professional development programs, seeking student and peer feedback, refining teaching techniques, remaining current on Arizona law, and continually improving the learning experience for future students.